Aloha, I'm Malia Zimmerman, and this is News Behind the News. Hawaii is one of the toughest places in the country to do business, if not the worst. And today we have two people who know about the business community and are working to help fix it. I want to welcome to the show Senator Sam Sloan, who heads Smart Business Hawaii and the Small Business Hawaii Entrepreneurial Education Foundation.
Oh, that's a mouthful, yeah, Malia?
It is,
Thank
right.
you.
And Representative Barbara Maramoto, who is on your board.
I'm very lucky. We're very lucky. That's right.
And was in the House of Representatives for many, many years.
34.
34 years. Okay, and so you know a lot about business just from being dealing with the issues from the legislative perspective as well.
We hear a lot of complaints from small businessmen.
Right.
And women.
And women, right. Well, many, many times we've talked on the show about all the ratings of small business climates. And Hawaii usually is rated one of the worst climates, or one of the most expensive places to do business, one of the most burdensome regulations.
Or all of the above.
Right, on and on and on. And then you throw into that all the medical and other, mandates. And then now we have Obamacare. So what is it that, can you give a summary, Sam, of the business climate here, how you see it? And then I definitely want to go into Smart Business Hawaii and some of the things that the organization does. But maybe you can give the overall picture for people who may be a small business owner or may be thinking about becoming one.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you mentioned, almost every national ranking that comes out ranks us dead last, 49th or 50th in terms of business climate, a hospitable relationship with unions, with government and all that. And it's really a shame. We have wonderful entrepreneurs here in the state. We have businessmen and women who have struggled. They've made great contributions in terms of products and services, but we're losing a lot of them. The older generation, they can't pass on their business to the younger generation in their families because those kids have seen mom and dad work so hard, they missed their Little League game or their volleyball game or something like that. They don't want to make that kind of commitment. Nobody wants to do that today. And as a consequence, a lot of the businesses that were benchmark businesses are no longer here. The other really sad thing is I'm really bullish on Hawaii. I mean, Hawaii has got many opportunities. We've got great people, as I mentioned, and we've got good resources. But we're not inclined to improve the business climate, mainly because we've become so enamored of government involvement and everything. And the people in government, most of them, elected officials and others, have never met a private payroll in their lives, so they don't have the same understanding. Now, I've never said that those of us in business are any better than anybody else, but your experiences help define you. And if it's your business, for example, and we've got 25,000 businesses in the state, of which 94% are small businesses, less than 100 employees. Mm-hmm. If you make a mistake, and we do, but it's your own business, your name is up there, your finances and resources are there, your family is there. You're not going to make the same mistake twice. On the other hand, if you're in government, you make a mistake, you get reelected, or you get a bonus or something else.
At least in Hawaii.
At least
Maybe
in Hawaii.
Not everywhere else, but Hawaii for sure.
So it's, we have so many opportunities. We're a politically stable 50th state. We have a beautiful climate, we've got a good workforce and all that, and yet we find that businesses, they overfly Hawaii, both eastbound and westbound. And the reason for that is because they don't find that there's a consistency in our government policies. Our taxes, the tax burden, among the highest in the nation. Our regulations, prohibitions on business, employer mandates, again, among the highest. And it shouldn't be that way. And I know Barbara has been a long-time advocate for business reform and everything else. In fact, one of our sister organizations, Paychex Hawaii, since 1984, has rated all of the 76 members of the legislature every year. And I think Barbara is one of the very few. Every year she got a top award for 34 years of things she was doing and fighting. But sometimes it gets really lonely. And we invite business people in, tell us how to make our economy better. Tell us how to create jobs. And they do. And then people that are in charge say, okay, thanks a lot. We'll go back doing exactly what we've been doing for 30, 40 years. That's the frustrating part.
I don't think they understand. If they're not in business themselves, it's very hard for them to envision making a payroll or And when they think of corporations, they always think of it as an adjective, like corporate greed. And that's really unfortunate. There is a lot of regulation and high costs of business doing in Hawaii, starting with land costs and utility costs. And I feel sorry for some of these small business people because if they make a mistake, they're going to have to pay the penalties. And so for the small businessman out there, you know, I feel like they would be more at home if they joined like an organization like Smart Business Hawaii, and they could at least commiserate with their fellow entrepreneurs. They can network, and they could pick up some tips. For instance, we had a nice talk on healthcare, and HMAA provided us some of the new regulations that will be facing Hawaii coming up, and it's right around the corner. And it's simply frightening because they're very complex, very complicated. And some businesses will be charging their employers, they'll have the older employers will be paying more for their insurance. Part-time, it's going to encourage part-time workers. There's so many unforeseen circumstances, consequences of this bill that it's better if you're in an organization that could help you get through some of these obstacles that business have to face.
Like Smart Business Hawaii. In fact, Reg Baker, another board member from your organization, was on the show twice now talking about Obamacare, the regulations, and what businesses are facing, and individuals, and some of the challenges with the healthcare.gov website not being up, and so on. So, and how the plans are changing and becoming more expensive, and how it's going to be harder and harder to find a doctor.
Well, as you know, as Barbara was saying about joining an organization, Lex Brody, the legendary Lex Brody, who started our original organization back in 1976, his whole idea then was, we need a union for small business owners. We need to stick together. People always ask me, what's the greatest strength of small businesses? And I say, our greatest strength is our independence. And they say, what is your greatest weakness? And I say, our independence. We don't join together. We want to do things our way, which is great. But the fact of the matter is, particularly now, with all these regulations, with taxes, with the health care and all that, you really need to band together. And that was Lex's vision. And we've been around for 38 years now and trying to help people. We are much more aggressive, I think, than other business organizations. I think people that come into Hawaii oftentimes are surprised that the biggest businesses here in Hawaii seem to be in lockstep with the government. And they don't seem to mind more taxes and more regulations. A cynical person would say they welcome it because it serves as a barrier to entry to keep out competition in smaller businesses and all that. Be that as it may, there is a difference between a big business, between a mainland corporation and a local mom and pop shop here. And we're losing more of those. I mean, the benchmarks that we grew up in, I mean, even, gosh, I don't get very excited going to Ala Moana Shopping Center anymore because it's like any other mall, any other shopping center anywhere. You know, gone are the days when we sold cars out of there, and we had the crack seed center, and we had stores that, you know, were unique to the center, but not anymore. Now it's all the big high-price lines for mostly our Japanese tourists and the wealthy people that come here. And a lot of people feel that they're disenfranchised. The other thing is, there are a lot of organizations here, besides ours, government and private, that will help small businesses and people that want to start up, but you can only help them so much. After they're helped, they still have to contend, as I say, with the taxes, with the regulations and the mandates. And it's tough. It's easy to start a business here. It's difficult to make it profitable and to continue the business.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up Lex because he was one of my heroes. He helped me way back when in the early 80s.
He helped so many people, that's right.
And I used to get my tires changed there, and he was very service-oriented. He was a great entrepreneur, and he really appreciated his clientele. And we've had great speakers, people comparable to Lex Brody. Clark Hatch was one of our speakers a few months ago, and he has started health clubs all over Asia, as far away as Abu Dhabi, dozens of them. And he's started out with, and met kings and prime ministers and all sorts of interesting people. He tells an interesting story because there's different circumstances and different customs and traditions, different cultures with every country that he opens up in. And so we gave him an award, Small
The
Business
SBH Foundation, right?
And what was the title of that award?
Well, he was listed as a business booster and an all-star, and he's done all that. And, you know, the thing about Clark Hatch and the other people in our community, particularly small business people, they don't seek and they usually don't get a lot of publicity, but they're very active in the community. They do things. For example, you're on the Diamond Head Advisory
Citizens
Committee.
Advisory Committee of
And
DLNR.
what just happened there that's
Well,
of interest?
The State Parks Division constructed a linear trail from the beginning of the Montserrat, Diamond Head Drive, and up to 18th Avenue. And it's on your right. Sometimes it's above the road, so it's hard to see. And so that was a nice thing that the DLNR did, so you could, because a lot of people walk around Diamond Head, run around, jog around. But Clark Hatch donated some workout machines near 18th Avenue. So please go try them. I hope they don't rust, but they look very strong. Thank you, Clark Hatch. He's a great entrepreneur, a great idea man.
And he gives back to the
independent.
community. And by the way, that little park
Bark
is
Park.
Bark Park. Well, yeah, he did that too, but I mean, the exercise park is named after our Olympic decathlon champion, Brian Clay. So it's something else, and it's a good use of space. It's something that we can do outdoors. But, you know, our other awardees that we try to recognize, Vicky Cayetano, for example, the first lady, former first lady. If it wasn't for her and people that she was able to gather together because of her leadership and drive, we wouldn't have a symphony. We had a symphony, we lost a symphony. Now we have a new Hawaii Symphony, which hopefully is going to thrive and do well. People do this, they get involved here. So we have, that's what I said, we have great people here, and there are great stories. And I know Malia has done a lot of stories, both on Hawaii Reporter and on this TV program, to highlight that, the people that don't always get the publicity, but they're good people.
Well, the
and
most recent person on the show was Victor Lim.
there you go, of
And he
McDonald's.
and he's won awards from Smart Business Hawaii and done many things in the community.
Yeah.
And
He's
just got
very generous.
and just got recognized nationally in the
Yeah.
McDonald's organization as the top person for the year for McDonald's. So
Yeah.
I guess it's not only a community award for community involvement, but also for business.
McDonald's is, of course, a really good corporation wherever they go, whatever community, and they always stress, you know, community involvement. And they have charity runs, and they have the Ronald McDonald House, and they do a lot of things for literacy. And they implore their, you know, their executives to get involved, and they do. And that's what we do in Smart Business Hawaii. When we give awards, it's not just for the business success or not what the bottom line is, it's how they've given back to the community. And a lot of people can say, well, I wrote out a check. Yeah, that's good, and that's really appreciated, but we know, anybody in business, you know how important your time is and everything else. And so when somebody actually gives time, they mentor people, they get involved in boards on a voluntary basis, it's a big thing. By the way, when Barbara was mentioning some of the people that we've had before, we had Steve Forbes, who came out for one of our anniversaries. We've had some top economists and politicians and all that, but probably the most unusual speaker that we ever had was Gene Simmons of KISS. And I can remember when my board was saying to me when I first proposed it, you're going to invite who? Why would you do that?
Now, just for people that don't remember who KISS is,
Yeah.
they had the black and white makeup,
Yep.
and he had the really long tongue,
Yeah.
and that he used to stick out, and
Yeah.
he used to sing a lot of rock and roll.
That's right. And
Yeah.
still does.
And originally, when your son was younger, what did you think of KISS?
I ripped out the posters in his room. I didn't think it was a very good role model and all that.
But you come to learn that's a different
25 years later, yeah, my son is saying, aha. But Gene Simmons, one of the best marketers in the world. He's got like 1,000 different KISS products. In fact, he just started a new arena football team in Los Angeles. So that's his team, arena football. He and one partner own the Indy IndyCar races. I mean, he's amazing. And when he came here, he had a tremendous message for young entrepreneurs here, and he was really good. But he was one of the guys that said, because our organization started out, it was Lex Brody Small Business Association, then it was Small Business Hawaii. And he said to us, why are you guys saying small business? That's so limiting. Why don't you get smarter? Why don't you have a different name? And we took that to heart, and 4 years ago, that's why we became Smart Business Hawaii. And we were always telling our members, you know, you've got to act smarter, you've got to be better. But I mean, we had Ronald Kiyosaki here, you know, and Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I mean, we've had a lot of great speakers, and we try to help and mentor people. And we act as kind of a clearinghouse for information, because there's always things that impact small businesses, and they don't always get the word. And they don't have PR people and lawyers and other people that can read everything for them. They've got to read it and do it themselves.
You had John Fund here?
John Fund
Of
of the Wall Street Journal, yep. In fact, he's been a good friend to Malia, to Hawaii, to small business and all that. Although, you know, a lot of people here don't like any kind of criticism, and they don't like these rankings, and they try to downplay them or spin them somewhere else, instead of saying, well, look, let's take this criticism and let's do the things that we have to do. There's no reason we couldn't be like a Singapore, for example. We could not, you know, we could be a free market port here, and that's been proposed, make the whole state a free trade zone. But as you say, because the people don't have that experience and don't have that background, they sure know how to get elected. They know how to raise money and raise their salaries, but they don't know, you know, how difficult it is to raise businesses. It's a shame. But I'm still optimistic. I'm still positive that we can do better in the future, and we will.
Before we get too far away from Steve Forbes and Gene Simmons, I wanted to mention some funny stories behind the scenes, and then we'll get back on track. But Steve Forbes was here, and he actually, you know, brought a bodyguard with him.
Yeah.
But later, we had talked to him at the hotel beforehand, you know, before the event, and then we saw him walking around the food court in Ala by himself, looking at the businesses and so on, and really examining what's going on in business in Hawaii.
He's an amazing guy and really down to earth, and talked to anybody and everybody that came up to him.
That's right. And then also Gene Simmons, the funny, you didn't mention, but the fun part about that whole thing.
Got to watch out what I mentioned. I mean,
that's true.
Some things, right?
That's true.
You already talked about his tongue, Malia.
I know. Oh, I don't know if they're going to let that go on the air. But anyway, the other thing about it is Gene Simmons brought, part of what you did was you brought the production of Gene Simmons' show called Family Jewels, right? Gene Simmons' Family Jewels.
A&E Network, 17 crew members, that we had to put up here and rent hotel rooms and rent vehicles and all that. But we got 2 programs out of it that were filmed here, and they're still re-showing them like 5 years later.
And you had a starring role in both episodes.
Yeah. I think that's probably what ended the series afterwards. But no, and Roy Yamaguchi of Roy's Restaurant actually cooked the meal for Gene and his wife-to-be, Shannon Tweed.
And then Ko'olina provided the rooms, and you had Sheraton Waikiki, they shot there. So a lot of businesses came together, and JN Chevrolet donated the cars. So it was a neat event where all these businesses in the community came together to put on a really neat show and to help Smart Business Hawaii and educate the public more about business, because Gene Simmons being here, sharing all his knowledge.
You know, we actually have been on the forefront of a lot of things. We were doing networking before the term ever became popular. We started the first Young Entrepreneurs program for really young people.
You had a baseball
30 years
team.
ago. We had a softball league.
Softball league, okay.
Well, I started the league because nobody would pick me for the team, so I started my own darn league. We had 10 businesses. We used to play out at Kei Lagoon on Saturdays and Sundays, and we had a wonderful time. And we used to have charter the Navitec and other boats, because you have to know about business people. You can sit down and say, why don't you come to the legislature? And they go, who wants to go to the legislature, right? But if you're sharing a luau or watching hula dance, you say, what about that dumb legislature? You know what they did on workers' comp? Things like that. So, you know, people oftentimes get very frustrated, and they think, oh, my vote doesn't count, my involvement doesn't count, I can't fight City Hall. But in fact, they can, and they have, and we've done some things. We've improve the workers' comp laws, improve the unemployment compensation laws here. We got a long way to go, and there's a lot of things to do, but we don't want people to be discouraged. We want to energize them and get them down here, because it's only a self-fulfilling prophecy if they say, oh, I'm not going to vote, I'm not going to do anything. Then nothing changes.
We
But
really want them to get involved.
we do want them to get involved, and they
And
can
it's-
make a difference.
It's very important to educate the legislators, too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
that's-
one thing I miss about...
we have to use a lot of pictures and cartoons. Yeah.
Well, I used my mouth when a bill would come up, maybe I'll vote no, I might be the only no, I'd get voted down, but I'd stand up and explain my no vote, explain the bill, explain the adverse effects of the bill, and that way, people start learning what it's all about. Unemployment insurance, it's very arcane, and a lot of people don't understand it. They just know that when they lose a job, they could collect workers' comp. So I look forward to learning more from Smart Business Hawaii. I always do.
Well, you're a great contributor, Barbara.
Your morning breakfasts are very interesting.
Once a month, the last Thursday of the month, and we've had some great guests there, too. In fact, we're going to have Michael Medved start off our 2014 session there. But we answer questions if somebody has a legal concern or a labor concern or something like that. They can come to us, and we'll try to answer it. And if we don't have the expertise, we'll get somebody that can. But all of us really have to work together. And I think that the problem with people in business, as in nonprofits and other things, sometimes they become very myopic. They see their problem, and that's all they see. And yet, a lot of these problems are interrelated, and if we help one another on it, we can not only solve the problems, but we have a greater potential force. So
Everything
that's
can
what
be
I'm trying to do.
solved, and it's better if everybody
Yeah.
works together. And
Yeah.
and it's a good opportunity to people. I mean, how many organizations can you call and get advice for your business, understand the laws, talk about the legislation coming up,
Yeah, and all of us
legislature
are
coming up.
business owners, so,
Right.
we're there on the front lines. And, it was alluded to earlier, this Obamacare, or the so-called Affordable Care Act, has the potential to destroy all of us. First of all, the president made his three famous promises. You can keep your own plan, wrong. You can keep your own doctor, wrong. Your premiums will go down, wrong. And now we've got millions of people that are having their plans canceled. Their premiums are going up 40%, 50% or more. It's a terrible thing. And why? Because we didn't read the 2,000-page document. We had the then majority leader in the House, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, who at least helps our business climate here by coming over and getting her face redone every year at great expense.
I don't
right?
know if that's been publicized, but okay.
Anyway, yeah. Anyway, and she said, well, first we'll pass the bill and then we'll read it. Well, you can't do that. Barbara's had been in the legislature for 34 years. I've been in the Senate for 18 years. We're both old-fashioned. We read it before we vote. We make statements and try to explain to people so that, politicians don't have the ability to say years from now, oh, Representative Maramoto, is that what that meant? I didn't read it. I didn't know that those are the unintended
Was that a
consequences.
2,000-page bill?
Yeah.
I must admit, I probably wouldn't read it, but it just
Wasn't
seems
good
to me very...
bedtime reading.
If you're going to cover people who don't have insurance and you're going to mandate more services, health care for them,
Yeah.
you're going to pay more.
That's right.
So it never makes sense to
And
me.
Reg Baker pointed out when he was on here from HMAA
Yeah.
that the bill keeps changing, the bill kept changing,
Right.
and then there's all these regulations that keep changing. So it's really hard to keep up with.
But there was so much that issues that were raised that people such as Reg and Barbara and myself raised, and people either didn't want to hear them, weren't prepared to hear them. And that's the thing about educating, whether you're talking about children or you're talking about business people. They've got to be receptive and ready to hear it. And that was a good thing about the softball league. I'd be playing, shortstop, and I could talk to the third baseman and say, geez, what about that tax they're proposing right now? Because, for example, you talk about unemployment compensation. They bill it as an insurance. It's not. It's a tax. And no employee has ever paid a penny. It's all on the employer. And if the employer sells his or her business or transfers it, they can't get that money back. That money continues with the state and with people, and we keep raising the benefits and all that. Workers' compensation, people don't understand that. General excise tax. Barbara and I know about that, but there's still people, business people, that mix that up with sales tax, and they refer to it as the sales tax. No, we're the only state in the union that has a general excise gross income tax.
Value added.
Value added, pyramiding at every level.
It's an awesome money-making machine.
Oh, you bet. Well, that's why we're paying for the train to nowhere, the rail in Honolulu. We pay that 0.5% surcharge, and we're talking about $100 million a year just on that, just to go to the rail for their PR people and for their salaried people and all that.
So for people for business owners out there who may feel isolated or may not know a lot of this information or want to know more
Call
about.
us.
Yeah,
Contact us.
Right, because not only that, but one of the things that I had heard someone say before was Smart Business Hawaii can say the things that the business community needs to say
Yeah.
to the legislature and to the public that they might not want to say on their own.
Well,
And
that's
they'll-
true, and we do.
And because they feel that they could lose business or
Yeah.
be retaliated against or something like that. So, and you know how Hawaii, everybody's related to everybody, or they feel like they're hurting somebody's feelings, they don't want to speak up. So that's why organizations like Smart Business Hawaii are important, and there really isn't another organization like it in Hawaii that will actually stand up for small business like you do.
Yeah, well, you know, and we're very specific. We've had people say, well, I'm not going to join you unless you get rid of Costco and Walmart and Sam's Club. That's not our responsibility to get rid of anybody. Besides, those big box retailers, they hire a lot of local people, they buy a lot of local products and give opportunities. The problem is not with retailers, big box or anybody else. The problem is with our government. So we give our government, you know, a free ride on this. They're the ones that have the power to tax and regulate and restrict, and they do. And as Barbara says, they do out of the basis of never having run a business and not having the same
I'll echo
interest.
something you said earlier. Maybe government may be the problem, but I certainly have great faith in the people of Hawaii. I think when they are out of a job, they start making something, cottage industries start up, they go to
Sure.
the swap meet. They're very resourceful, and they could do very well. I'm looking forward to helping them as much as possible.
And we'll be glad to help them.
All
Call
right.
us.
Okay, well, there's smartbusinesshawaii.com, right? Is that right?
www.smartbusinesshawaii.com, and you can call us at our beautiful office in Hawaii Kai.
Okay.
But we'll be very happy to help you with your business.
All right. Well, I hope everybody joins your organization. I know my business is a member, and I've been
Yep.
benefited greatly. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity, Malia.
All right.
Thank you.
This has been News Behind the News. Aloha.